All right, welcome back to another episode of the Shop Class Podcast. This is a place where we have shop teachers sharing ideas and talking with industry professionals. Tonight we have two topics, one of which is my topic. I just finished a off-grid food trailer with my students. We're going to have photos from start to end. A lot of people here were involved to help. I always had them on video calls, and we also could talk about how it's a collaboration between all the shops: wood shop, metal shop, electric, planning, and whatnot. Okay, so that topic, we're going to hold that as the second topic. But the first topic is going to be the shop classes. Bring back shop class, right? This is a thing going on. There's a shortage of shop teachers. There's a shortage of shop classes, and in California, believe it or not, they don't actually give tenure to the teachers. There are teachers that have that are cut down to what they call a 1/5 part-time. I'm not sure how I could run a part-time program that wouldn't work for me. You know, when you're a shop teacher, you're kind of all in. So let me introduce the people involved, and then we're going to talk about what they're going to, how they're voicing their opinion about what's happening and what they're doing about it and how you guys could support them. Okay, so starting with, we have Omar Sevilla.
Hey guys, my name's Omar Sevilla. I teach at Madison High School in San Diego.
He's in Madison. Nice. And I was just there in California conference. It was a automotive conference with an electric car theme, and that was really cool. A really good job out there. Yeah, and we did a Tesla swap, a battery swap right on the scene, and we had industry pros. One of the industry pros we have here is Brandon Watt. How you doing?
Doing good, Ron. Thanks for having me on. It was a pleasure to help Omar and have our staff be there for that event. That was really awesome to promote EV education. You're very welcome, sir.
Nice. And he represents Switch Lab, which is basically a packaged educational kit for learning how to go from gas to electric. People sometimes get upset about that. Electric, I just say it's another option. Just like you like Chinese food and you like Italian food. Why can't we have both as America? I like options. Plus, it's gaining popularity, and there are jobs available. So we could put the differences aside and just look at the reality of it, that you should know how power electronics work. And that's how trains work. And there's a lot of electric power electronics going on in transportation. Nothing new. Okay. So anyway, we also have Larry. He is representing. He was a shop teacher in California. Larry, how you doing?
Pretty good. Good to see everyone.
Nice. And are you currently a teacher, or are you retired?
I retired, failed retirement, and now I'm a law teacher. But all my research and all my presentations are centered around keeping automotive education going.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And thank you for that work. We also got our regulars. We got Duke Lazowski, middle school shop teacher, East Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania.
What's going on? Hey, I never heard that before, Larry. Failed retirement. How'd you do that?
He can't sit still.
I hope that doesn't happen to me.
Yeah, there you go. And then we got Peter Molinar. He is coming to us from Toronto, Canada. He has been an amazing contributor. He's done everything from roofing to machining. How you doing, Peter?
Good tonight. Good to be here.
All right.
Peter, it's been a while.
Yes, it has.
Feels like forever. Everything's summer kicked in, and haven't seen you since school was still in. Good to see you. Hope it's cooler up there than it is down here.
No, we've had some sweltering heat in the last 2 days.
Brutal.
It is brutal here. We also have Tim Zavacki, is a shop teacher, wood shop teacher, but he's done it all from communication over to small engines. How you doing, Tim?
Good afternoon, everybody. Nice to see everybody. Some new faces there. Welcome.
Yep. All right. And Omar, do you want to introduce who else we have on the call here?
Yeah, I got Lori Lois on the call. Lori is a video production teacher at Madison High School. She has an amazing broadcast studio in her building, and it's actually connected to the cable network. So if there was like a natural disaster, any news organization can come to her building and actually broadcast from her studio. It's pretty incredible stuff. That's the taxpayers, man. I have a beautiful new building. Lori has a beautiful new building. So this is Lori Loy. So she joined us. I don't know if she's open to talking tonight, but she's here. So that's awesome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I just kind of jumped in at the last minute here, so I'm not sure exactly what this is all about, but I'm very excited to be a part of this. Thank you.
Oh, no problem. Lori, some of the shop teachers also do the broadcast classes, and I've always felt that the technical creatives is basically industrial arts. Now they call it STEAM or STEM. They're part of it. They're part of the shop teachers. So you're an honorary shop teacher tonight, and we were just talking about the importance of shop class. To me, it's where academics, where the rubber meets the road. You know, you could study all you want, but until you actually do something, you haven't applied your theory. It's just theory. And same with college. College is theory until you actually do it. So Lori, welcome, and thanks for doing your classes.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. So Omar and Larry, they don't just talk, they take action. So Omar, you want to just set us up with some of the interesting problems that I don't have in New Jersey. I'm lucky. I'm a full-time employee. That means something just fell. Sorry. I'm a full-time employee. I have 5 classes, and there's even an after-school program. But in California, I've had friends that taught auto body, and they're very creative. There was a shop teacher friend of mine. He taught in Santee. Tony Santana.
Yeah.
Was at Santana High School. He retired. Oh my God, he was so good. They did the SUV before Jaguar did, or BMW. They used to graph the BMW front on a Mazda minivan and make it look like a performance vehicle. He was so creative with the
lifelong
students.
lessons.
And he predicted all that stuff. And so at one point, BMW contacted him, and they said, "Where did you get a hold of our prototype?" And he's like, "No, we just came up with it in the classroom." So, so shop teachers are very creative. The kids are great to be on board with big projects. But believe it or not, they would cut his hours. They would cut it back to 1 class. Then they would do 2 classes, and they call it a 1/5, 2/5. So can you explain that problem going on? We don't have this in Jersey. I've heard they have it in New York State too. So what is it? What is all that?
I'm happy to share to the best of my knowledge how it works. Classes like ours used to be funded with ROP money, which is the Regional Occupational Program. They used to fund evening classes. They used to have actually adults in the classroom with the high school students. And maybe about 12 years ago, ROP funding went away, I think in the whole state. So part of that ROP language at the California Department of Education stated that ROP teachers were classified as probationary teachers. And that probationary status was because sometimes they wouldn't fill up a class, and you have to have a certain number of students to run a night class and things like that. But when ROP went away, most of the funding went through CTE, or Career Technical Education Programs. The other term they use is CCTE, which is College Career Technical Education. I keep the college out of it because that's not my argument, right? It's Career Technical Education, and they are now funding all of the classes that used to be ROP. The difficulty is in our district, all the teachers who get hired on under CTE courses are classified as probationary teachers. So what this means is every year at the end of the school year, you get a letter essentially saying, thank you for your service in completing your contract obligations. And then hopefully by June 21st, you get another letter saying, hey, we're going to ask for you back. So that's been going on with me since I started at San Diego Unified in 2008. I started teaching at Miramar College in 2005. At the community college district, they have made their own rules. So as a part-time professor, they give me what they call priority of assignment. So priority of assignment means that they have to offer me the class that I am have priority on before they offer it to anyone else. At San Diego Unified, a principal can come in and just make a decision and say, hey, we don't want to run this class anymore. We're going to use this money for something else. We have today, we had a colleague, Mike Peterson, went to represent teachers like us at the California State Senate. And he made this argument about how he's been a teacher in the district for over 20 years, and he's being treated differently than, say, a math or English teacher who has the same teaching experience. They can, at their will, just replace him or remove him from that position without any protections from the union or anywhere else.
Interesting. It's very interesting. I couldn't operate like that. I'm all in. I don't know if people realize, of course you guys do, but I'm not sure other people outside of if you're teaching a shop class. I mean, there's a lot of responsibility. You have to set up machines. It's not like I had a shop teacher friend that used to say, well, the English teachers, obviously there was some really passionate English teachers, but at the end of the day, they click the lights and go home. They don't have to create the print making, book making machine. Like they don't have to clean out the binder. It's like they just go home.
Essentially, what I tell other teachers when they're complaining about protocol and how to lock up their classroom and whatnot, I just say, hey, I have 44 doors in my building that get checked before I go home. So be quiet. I'm locking up 44 doors on top of shutting down the equipment, compressors and computers and everything else that needs to be shut down. And every morning that stuff gets opened back up. So there's definitely more commitment than just, a typical classroom teacher.
So now that we kind of set it up, I think this is really well written. Do you want to read this?
Yeah, so I wrote this statement to support Mike's argument today at the state Senate hearing. So I'll read this. I'll read this and then answer any questions at the end, or take it whichever direction you see fit. So, cool. You guys ready? Great.
Yeah, I'm going to mute myself.
Okay, I'm going to go for it. Hello. I didn't know they still had shop classes. This is a phrase I hear almost every time I tell people that I teach automotive technology. I started my career as a teacher in 2005, and in that time, I've seen numerous shop classes disappear in our state. In 1987, LA Unified had 100 high schools, which supported 75 auto technology programs. Today, they have 184 high schools with 9 auto shop programs. They're still surviving. In a time when our state is approximately 24,000 auto technicians short, it seems we're missing the mark. Why don't we have culinary class? That was my favorite, a question I've had to answer dozens of times over the last few years. In November 2018, my school hired a new principal, and in her plan, she decided that culinary and auto did not support her vision for our school. The result was hundreds of students missing out on lifelong fundamental skills and work experience. How does this happen? When I ask my administrators, union, and district managers, they answer California Ed Code, or they didn't realize it was actually happening. We live in a world where students are guaranteed a spot in a math and English classroom where the teacher's position is protected regardless of outcomes and test results. Students do not have those same guarantees when it comes to career and technical education classes, formerly known as ROP. I've been teaching at the high school level for 15 years and I am classified as a probationary employee with my district. In an era of inclusion, equity, and social justice, I identify all CTE teachers who have met the definition for tenure and who have not received it as a marginalized group. These are the teachers that drive attendance for at-risk students. They bring real-world value to schools that only offer academics. They are experts in their field of industry. Why do they get treated differently? It's time to secure high-quality hands-on education by fixing California Ed Code and district policies to guarantee these opportunities for our children. This will only happen when teachers like us get equal protection from administrators who have a vision. Please feel free to contact me for any questions or more insight on this topic. Thank you.
Great job, Omar.
Yeah.
Thank
And
you.
so, I think you did a great job there. It's just amazing. Even culinary, think about it, imagine not learning how to cook food, but you went to an American high school. I mean, it's just really ridiculous. And also I want to add in that, there is an emphasis on sports as well. And here's the thing.
Absolutely.
I played basketball and baseball, and I absolutely loved it. I was all in on that. I didn't think I didn't have dreams of going pro or anything like that. But if you ask around, hey, how many people have been paid for their foot to be on a field after graduating high school? It's a pretty low number. I think we've got out of all the 100 years that my school has been there, I think we got like 1 or 2 professional athletes out of the entire program. So, and my district did not cut the auto, the metal, and also the wood shop, but a lot of neighboring districts did. And so my thing is, I think there needs to be some reasonable balance to what is happening. If there's let's say there was somebody that could make decisions listening to this, we're obviously not asking for an overcorrection, but I mean, you got to be a little reasonable about what's going on here. There must be an amazing budget for sports, but who's going pro? But as far as engineers go, I have a ton of students that became engineers. I got a ton of students that became auto mechanics. I got a ton of students that work in wood shops, trains, welders, machinists. I mean, it's like you definitely have people making money, security systems, electronics. People are making money from taking a shop class. That is a real thing. So
absolutely.
Yeah. Now, anybody else have any comments to add about this?
I had a question. I was wondering, is this district by district or is this statewide in California?
Well, so the language at the California Ed Code kind of gives districts an excuse to not to do what they're doing. There are a handful of districts in San Diego County who are giving their CTE teachers tenure. A couple of them include Ramona Unified School District, Poway, Oceanside. I've talked to those directors face to face, and they're like, "No, we value our teachers, and they get tenure just like a math and English teacher."
Vista Unified also.
Yeah, and Vista Unified also. So it's going to be a matter of the district. It's going to be the state has to do the right thing, and then the district will have to follow suit. There are. Mike Peterson went today. The vote to actually change the language at the state today did win 4-2, but now it needs to go to the next level where the legislators need to review it, and then it needs to be signed by Gavin Newsom. So there's a few layers of getting this to happen. We've been at this spot before, but last time we were at this spot, the actual language, the bill actually died in process because it took too long. I think part of it was the beginning of COVID was last time this happened. So we're hoping this time it'll continue to work its way through the process and change. But it's unfortunate that there's still people who are against changing the language. So there are a couple leaders in the Central Valley of California who oppose this bill and think that it's not the right thing to do. So
is this bill 2245?
I don't know the number off the top of my head. There's a couple of bills actually.
This 2245 passed, and that was about tenure track for ROP teachers.
That was this morning.
Oh, was that actually today? I was just Googling it real quick. Wow.
So put a link to the bill so I could pull it up. The other thing I wanted to say while we're looking for the bill is that, Omar is running like a no joke program over there. He just hosted a really innovative conference that involves the best in automotive. Here's just a photo of what's going on over there. Look at all the bays. They have a really great program over there. Imagine having a teacher running part-time, running a program like this. I mean, it's just the responsibility level is through the roof.
Yeah, I mean, the building's 14,000 square feet, and I'm the only staff in that building, so it's kind of silly.
Mm-hmm.
Omar,
Yeah.
do you have an Instagram account? I think I
I do, and I've been really low on activity on my social media these last 6 months. I've just been so focused on the conference and this bill and some other things going on. And I have 4 kids at home too, so I'm spread real thin. So my social media has been a low priority for me. But yes, I have an Instagram. The Instagram is Madison Auto Club or Madison_Auto Club. Let me see if I can put it in the chat here.
I think I remember seeing it.
What's up, guys? How you doing?
Cool. Hey, I want to introduce Greg Kierwin's in the house. Greg Kierwin he's been fighting the good fight on this side as well. He's a coordinator for shop teachers in San Diego, and also part-time hot rodder.
I'm a resource teacher, not a coordinator, but
Greg's got a pretty legit YouTube channel too. He's documenting some world famous engine builders here in San Diego. So definitely follow his YouTube channel. It's pretty awesome stuff.
And
so what you guys talking about tonight?
We're actually just talking about you.
Oh, shoot. Okay. Did I leave?
What we're doing tonight is 2 topics. The first topic is shop teachers, tenure tracks and part-time and shop classes closing and opening, and also that Omar had a colleague go up to the Senate and read a statement explaining the importance of shop class. And who was that went up there, Omar?
Yeah, that was again? Michael Pedersen. I actually just talked to him for about an hour on the phone on my drive home. So
Greg, you know what the bill number is?
I don't know the bill number was.
I dropped it in the chat. I think is this what we're talking about, but I might be wrong. It's just really very recent.
I think it did. They voted 4-2. I think he said. So it looked good. He did get some opposition. There was some opposition and stuff like that where it's pretty interesting. So I don't know if this is something to bring up, Ron, but I just had this conversation with Michael Pedersen on, because he just went up for that bill and trying to rally for, getting tenure and stuff. But, one of the things that's very interesting too, and it's kind of related to in our district in San Diego Unified and other large districts like LA, and I'm sure you have it in your school district too. They will never really say that there's 2 different tracks within the high school program, but we have these high schools that are called alternative high schools, and these are generally for students that don't do well in the standard academic pathway. So they may have these alternative schools. Do you guys have alternative high schools also for kids that are struggling and to get them to graduate?
We sometimes have a school within a school, but then they also have a county vocational school, which when I was a kid, everyone knows from the 90s, that was the bad kid school. But that's ironic because now, if you want to go there, you have to test to get in. There's a line.
Yeah.
You have to go on a waiting list because here's why. The county vocational schools invested in technology equipment, whether it's wood shop, metal shop, even medical equipment, MRI machines, really vocational training, even micro electron microscopes, stuff like that. They invested in tech, whereas the other schools really just invested in a general way in books and sports and didn't really focus on vocational training. So that would be the difference over here, I think.
Yeah, Omar knows about what I'm talking about. You know how we have Twain and Alba?
Yeah, so these are like continuation style schools, like second chance schools.
Yeah. And the thing that I'm finding though with these second chance schools, Omar, is that there's nothing in there to keep them hooked or engaged or to want to pursue it, right? So they're already struggling in their math and English or history class, but now I'm going to take them to this alternative school and take them away from the mainstream activities that happens on a traditional high school campus. And we're just going to force feed them this English and math and history and science so they can get their grad. But I know the reason this came up is because I'm teaching a summer school class over at Claremont High School, and over at Claremont High School they have an alternative school. It's called the Marcy School, and it doesn't look like a fun place to be. It's just a bunch of bungalows with a fence around it. It almost kind of looks, very, institutionalized, whatever. But these kids aren't getting any real world experience? They're just, again, we're trying to get them to meet their graduation credits and force them out, and these kids, in my opinion, are probably not going to be your college-bound students anyway, right? These aren't going to go to the San Diego State or UCSD or Cal Poly or whatever. But we're not giving them anything. We're not giving them any skills. We're not giving them any skills. And I just find that,
I don't know if you saw my letter, Greg. I did email it to you, but in my letter, I included the phrase that programs like ours drive attendance at these schools. And, a lot of kids, and I know that Lori and Larry and you, Greg, and probably everybody on the call has a student who has said, I only come to school for your class. Like, this is the only reason I'm here is because of your class. I love you and I love this program. And this is why I come to school. Yeah. That's what Greg's talking about, is that doesn't exist at these second chance schools. And really it should be a thing.
Well, and the reason that came up, Omar, was that Michael Peterson was telling me that, they're having to reduce one of the CTE teachers on their campus because there's not enough enrollment, right? So, but those kids went to other schools, and some of these kids that end up at these alternative schools, but what I'm basically getting to is that we don't have a CTE presence or a vocational education presence in these alternative schools, which in our district represents thousands of students. Not 20, thousands. So, and then you look at a district like LA, same thing. And so there's all these, if you go and look, LA Unified has 1,192 schools, 1,100 schools, almost 1,200 schools, but they're not, and of those 1,200, 184 of them are high schools, but they're not high schools, the type of high schools that we know about that we're representing here. They're not the Madison high schools or this high school that you teach at, Ron. They're, of those 184, they're all these, a lot of them are these alternative schools or credit recovery schools and so on.
Mm-hmm. So, admittedly, now I think I understand what you're talking about. I actually went to an alternative school because I was not very, academic. I can't sit in a chair just taking on a lecture. And so I went to an alternative school and they had no automotive program, no hands-on, nothing. I used to go to junkyards and just learn about cars from the local guy that would take apart cars. I would help him take apart cars. I got to know the junkyard pretty well. And, and that's really a shame. These schools, like you said, you really need a hook. If you hook a kid into an automotive program, it doesn't mean that they won't be academic. It means that they need a hook. Let's say they like cars. Cars are instinctual because they kind of look like, they're fast and it's like, whoa, it's attractive. So then they're like, okay, I'm going to figure out how that works. Well, a car is really power mechanics. How do you turn potential energy into kinetic energy? And then, to be honest, I never considered engineering, but now every year that I work on cars, I really more interested in the engineering behind it. How can you measure what you're doing? And so you've got a kid who started life as, oh, I couldn't memorize the thing on the test, so now I'm a bad kid. And then I wasn't quite ready to go to vocational school because I didn't understand what was offered there. And so then you got a guy who, I got into design and because I could draw, and the drawing got me into cars. And then the cars, turns out you got to know about manufacturing, you got to learn welding, and so once I learned all these things, it turns out all roads lead to engineering, which is a high academic skill. And so this situation where the schools misguide students and then also take away programs is really a very obvious misguided attempt at educating a student. So that's my rant, guys. Sorry.
No, that's amazing. One of the questions I ask, especially when I'm talking to decision makers, is I ask the question, who are we serving? Are we serving the students in the community, or are we serving the university system? Because if that rule or that graduation requirement or that policy is affecting the student from taking my class, that's the question I asked. I said, hold on, you're putting the student in a 4th year math class. He doesn't want to be in that class. He wants to be in my class. He's not going to the university. Who are we serving by doing this? We're not serving the student, right? So, and that's a huge problem. So, that's a huge problem. Is I think a lot of the decision makers are they're still tunnel vision on this, college pathway, and we need to really change that idea and help them see through a different lens.
Yeah, and I'm not suggesting it should be all one or the other. I do think I like balance. Reading an engineering book and then doing a brake job to understand friction, changing. You're changing friction, rotational energy into heat. You're making like a handshake deal with physics. So you got to hold both. You can't just go one to the other. Pretty cool stuff.
Ron, I don't know is Larry able to just like 2 minutes, Larry, just share like what happened to his program, and
let's hear it.
After he got a brand new facility as well. They spent $6 million on his program, something like that, to build a whole new auto shop. And then tell them what happened, Larry.
Okay, so new principal came on board, and after a year, her and someone else in the district above her wanted to have 4 academies. And so I was advocating, to have automotive as that. We had the most interns in the district, most scholarships, on and on, pilot program for the accreditation, the student certification and everything. And anyway, it wasn't one of those 4. So anyway, I think I mentioned it earlier. I made a positive post on Facebook. And as a result of that, shorten the story, my principal called me up that evening and wanted me to talk with her the next morning. And I like all my administrators, but that particular one, I just didn't trust. And so this is the only time I ever asked to have a union person with me in a meeting. And she said, "Oh, I have good news for you. We can give you 1 section." Well, if you ever had a program that was NATF or ASE accredited, ASE Ed Foundation accredited, you have to have X number of hours. And that would drop below that threshold, which basically threatened the accreditation of our program. But I had heard that another high school principal wanted to restart their program. So I said, tell you what, if you can make my class the afternoon class, I'd be happy to go to the other school and, get their program up to speed where they can get accredited. And my students, if I had the afternoon class, all my students could be interning. But they didn't offer that to the other principal, and they wanted me in a binding contract, 17% no benefits. So I decided to walk away.
A Walmart greeter makes a lot more money than that.
Right.
Yeah. And I believe what they did to Larry is a strategy to kind of force you out, right? Because who's going to work for 17% contract?
Yeah, it is.
And that's what my principal tried with me. She offered a 40%. I think with the hopes of me throwing in the towel. Thankfully, I'm in a position where I was able to stay. I have other income sources, so that was good for me to be able to stay long enough to win my position back. That principal resigned, by the way, so at my campus. So
yeah, so Larry's situation was pretty grim, and it was it's really been a devastation to our programs, because Larry, like you said, he was nationally accredited. He had the highest number of interns. He also had, what was it? You had maybe every semester 15 to 20 kids would get their ASE certifications through the ASE exam, and so we were doing everything by the book, but it just didn't fit the vision, and that's what we see a lot. I see it a lot. We see, you get new leadership, and they're like, what's this wood shop back there in the corner in the sawdust? It smells weird. Or this auto shop out there. And then before you know it, we're going to do this, we're doing a new, some kind of academy or a new program, in the program that gets cut. And, it's unfortunate, because ever since Larry has left, the program has suffered. Now, as a result, what wasn't fully thought out when they eliminated Larry's position was the state of California funded that facility. Like they said, it was like $5.7 million. And there were some agreements that when you took that money from the state, that you had to offer the program for a minimum of 10 years. And they cut you probably after about 3 years after that building was built. So it still had a good, 7 or 8 years. And so basically the state said, well, if you're not going to run a program, you owe us $5.7 million. Please pay up. And so what they did was they hired a part-time teacher, and that part-time teacher has been there since Larry's left. But it's not enough to grow the program, right? So again, you can't have a part-time wood shop teacher, or a part-time metal shop teacher, or a part-time auto teacher if you're trying to get national accreditation and grow a program with part-time. So it's unfortunately it's suffered. And that's actually Larry, Larry, that's where I'm teaching the summer school right now.
Right.
In your old facility. And it's an awesome facility. It's got a lot of potential. It's very attractive. Everything works great, but, and there's a lot of interest too, but there's a lot of times there's these scenarios is what's causing, and Omar, I'm sure you already talked about the LA Unified model. And
I did. I included that in my letter, the statistics. I included that in my letter, and I also shared that letter with the SDEA. One of the teachers from our school has taken a leave, and she's the vice president of the union right now for San Diego. So I'm really working with her one-on-one to try to make that change.
And what about this group? Does this group know about the LA statistics? Did you talk to them?
Yeah, I read the letter to this group just before you got on. Yeah.
Okay.
So they have nine automotive programs still surviving out of like 80 or 75 in the 80s.
Yeah, with 182 for high schools. It's insane.
That's amazing. Can you guys break down the bill into, like, just boil it down into what it is that they were voting on today? So what is the core of it?
So on the bill, essentially, I'll read the summary. The summary states it deletes, as of July 1st, 2025, the prohibition or counting service as an instructor at regional ROP programs towards the service required to attain permanent employee status, and instead requires service as an instructor at ROCPs to be included in computing the service required to attain permanent employee status at the school district. So essentially, the law currently states that ROP teaching hours don't count towards service credit that is required to get tenure. They're going to be deleting that language is the plan.
Okay, got it. And they voted in favor of this so far?
It was 4-2 today was the vote.
Well, that's really good. Okay. So,
So Tim's
nice.
asking what is ROP. Greg, can you share ROP and what it has become? I don't remember what year it switched.
Yeah, ROP was Regional Occupation Program, which was a separate funding source to run, again, what we would call, vocational education programs in a traditional high school. So you could have a traditional high school and an auto shop, and the automotive program was run by ROP. And you used to have both adults and high schools. It was a vocational training program, and there was a lot of dislike that a high school kid would be sitting next to an adult that maybe is trying to get some job skills on a high school campus. And so there was a lot of push to go away from that. And then it went under the money. We don't have ROPs anymore in San Diego. And now it's just it's called CTE, Career Technical Education. And that now does not provide any adult education at the same time as high school education. So they're separated. So we get an allocation to run CTE for high school students, but not adults. Now then there's funding sources for adults through programs, and Larry would know about this, like the ECC, the continuing education facility. That's where adults can go and get their training if they want to be a plumber or a welder or a carpenter or automotive mechanic, but they're not doing it in the same set of a high school student. So it's kind of switched. But then what happened is when the ROP went away, the funding went to the district, and now the district can decide, like in Larry's case. So the district can say, well, I'm not going to fund Larry. I'm going to fund a medical pathway instead of an automotive pathway. And so before, with ROP funding, you could, the school wasn't paying for it. Someone else was paying for it. So the principals liked it because they didn't have to pay for the teacher. It was paid through a different source. So now it's just kind of pulled it into the budget.
Interesting. I just want to add, if someone was outside perspective, it's not just about auto shop. Although I will tell you, in recent times, I just completed a project that I feel is important to share, is that automotive skills are not just about cars. Really, an automotive vehicle is an off-grid robot system. You have your own batteries or your own fuel, way of making power. So even if it's a gas engine, you now have to transfer that power into something you can use. A lot of the pickup trucks are now going to have onboard power systems. The wiring is similar. You have to learn about wire sizes. You have to learn about amps, volts, wattage, how you're going to make power safely. There are safety systems. There's guidance systems now. When you drive your car, the ADAS is, assistance in steering. So it's kind of like half robot, half off grid. And I just did a project where we did an off grid food trailer. I got to tell you, the off grid building people are cousins with the car people. They just don't realize it. So if you do a vehicle, you're actually learning a lot about off grid. So you have solar charging a battery bank, which is going to be the norm going forward for houses and buildings. And then as a way to soften the blow to the grid. And then you have DC systems that are turning into AC systems. So that's the same thing that goes on in a car. So, anyone listening to this who might think, well, that's just car program. No, the buildings and trades, we have people on here that are carpenters. We have fine woodworking, building woodworking. We have middle school teachers that are getting kids started in robotics. 3D printing is not just a fad. That's a really rapid way of making a prototype. So these programs are super important, and they're cousins with engineering, off-grid. All these skills can translate to engineering or to a job. So, I mean, this is a rant, but I just want people to know that this is a wider topic than just cars. And believe me, I'm just cars, but I expanded my horizons by the further you go into cars, you realize that they are related to more industries than you realize. And so these programs are vital for a young person to at least get exposed to and see. I mean, even fixing a car, welding, bearings, machining. I mean, there's endless jobs in that area.
Automobiles are
anyway.
rolling science and math labs.
Exactly.
It's
exactly.
real world application of the theory.
Yeah. Brandon, do you want to chime in on this? Because Brandon's really good at the batteries and whatnot.
No, I totally agree. What Larry just said is exactly why we sell the product we do. Open chassis design, electric powered, high voltage system that is OSHA and ASE training for students so that they can go become an electrician, go climb a pole. They can go become a battery engineer. It has been interesting. Earlier, you guys were talking about how students are like thinking about college. We have that issue. I don't know if it's an issue, it's a good problem, but students who do the Switch Lab EV actually go into college engineering programs versus going into the auto shop workforce. I don't know if it's better or worse that they do that, but I have found that students are still college minded out the get-go, and you have to actually show them and explain to them all the options they have. And that can be really fun. You just have to give them something fun to do.
Yeah, Brandon, I think your product is pretty awesome. I had a lot of difficulty with my Switch Lab car. We adopted it from another school that didn't finish it. And man, it was a huge, huge learning curve for everybody. And I think what the students loved about it was they got to see me learn as well during the process, which was really cool. And the way it's laid out does drive that engineering mindset. So when they're like, wait a minute, how does this work? Why does this do this? Why does this do that? I think that's why it drives those questions to want to learn more. And maybe that's why.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's also why we're launching the design scholarship. We're trying to encourage students hopefully to go into either trade school, vocational school, but we're launching a Switch Lab design scholarship where students will do kind of what Ron did with his off-grid trailer, and students will get to design a new component attachment modification to our vehicle, submit that to us, and then potentially win a scholarship, because we do want to give them those options after high school or college to have a scholarship, have some money to go get their ASE certifications, or if they want to go get an advanced degree from a college, they can go do that.
So I'm just going to chime in on this too, Brandon and Omar. And what I find is interesting is, because I know Omar just went through the Switch Lab, and what you just said, Brandon, is one of the things that's odd, and I'm seeing this now teaching this class this summer that I'm doing this auto class, is, is what we tell students, or we assign them to a class. Like, you're going to take construction, or you're going to take, PE or history or math or engineering or biomed. And, the kids either pick or they're assigned to that. And, what I'm trying to, like, it's kind of hard for me to explain it, but you can just introduce a kid to a unique thing like a Switch Lab car, but not tell them what they're actually doing. Like, if you tell them, hey, you're going to have to do all this complex engineering and mathematics and electrical work, and we're going to have to do all these calculations, they'll be like, oh, that doesn't sound, I don't know if I want to do that, because that sounds kind of tough, right? But I'm finding that right now in the summer class, I'm not telling kids, hey, we're going to learn advanced geometry and we're going to teach you how to do all this geometry, applied geometry, and then we're going to go out and do an alignment on a car. I'm just taking them out and we're doing an alignment on a car, and we're just introducing him to it. Or here's the impact gun. Let's take the wheel off, or let's do this. And I'm kind of exposing them and taking them through that process. And I know Omar just did that with the Switch Lab, where it's different than the traditional, hey, let's go do this NATEF task of taking the wheel off and retorquing it, or let's take the brake pads out and put them back in. You're actually constructing this device that requires a lot higher level thinking and calculations and back and forth. So what I'm trying to again say is, I think we need to allow students to explore or give them exposure to something, and then they may find a passion or career within what they're doing, rather than just saying, oh yeah, you have to take this, welding class. What if it was like, hey, we have to build this vehicle and we need to weld up this chassis, and we're going to teach, we got to learn how to do some welding. And then after we build the chassis, now we got to put the electric motors in and the steering gear. I don't know. I'm just going on a rant, but I'm looking at different ways to approach.
I 100% agree.
Yeah.
It's funny. I treat my students like they're spies. they're on a need to know basis. If you try and fill the bucket, you're just jamming information that they're not listening to. It's like trying to put water in a wet sponge. It's not going to go in. Okay, there's a saturation point. But what you do is you create a need. So even my welding class, what I do first is there's no lecture, there's no talking. We just give it a try out the equipment, use the safe equipment. And then once they spark open the arc, now I talk to them. Oh, what is that? Let's talk about that. How did it liquefy the metal? Okay, let's talk about resistance, voltage, amps, resistance. Now and metallurgy. Now they care. They're not going to care unless there's a need. This is a human thing. I mean, right now I'm not thinking about the ceiling unless something dropped. You know what I mean? So you got to create the need. There's no way you're just going to fill the bucket.
You want to light the fire. Do I need to talk to them? Like, even in the auto shop the other day, at an activity, it was like, okay, the fuel injector is supposed to have approximately 14 ohms of resistance. So here's an ohm meter, and you measure across these two terminals, and there's 8 fuel injectors, and we're going to write down the resistance values of each. And if we have one that's lower than that, like 5 ohms, so that's out of range, and that's going to cause the circuit to run. So again, I'm not teaching them Ohm's law, everything about Ohm's law. I'm not teaching them everything about a fuel injector. I'm not teaching them everything about, resistance. I'm just saying, this is the tool. Take both of these leads and measure across these terminals, and let's see if we can find an anomaly out of these 8. And now after they did it, you're saying, oh, well, now do you realize you just diagnosed that bad fuel injector? And now you used a voltmeter and you used Ohm's law, and we looked at the resistance, But again, we didn't sit in the classroom for 3 weeks learning about Ohm's law. And we didn't sit in the classroom for 3 weeks learning about how to use our voltmeter. It's just, I handed it to them. Here, measure this, But they're doing it. That's the way they're getting it's like you said it before, Ron, you're not going to read a book on how to ride a bike. You're just going to get on the bike and ride it. And then, hey, this is fun. This is really cool. I like riding the bike. And now we can talk about, hey, how do you shift the gears on a bike? How to use the front brake? How to use the back brake? How to pop a wheelie? How to bunny hop? Whatever. So now there's all these different things you can do on the bike.
Yeah, that was kind of the design process behind the switch. You build and you learn. That's why we attach curriculum to it. And a lot of teachers just dive in and then reference the curriculum whenever they need to explain how to use the voltmeter, like you did. Like that's the best way I think we've seen teachers really get students be like, oh, like the light bulb goes off. They now know what troubleshooting is, how to find the problem, following a wire diagram or whatever.
Yeah.
When we got our program first, back then it was called NATEF, when we got it accredited, I also opted for the optional, they call it applied academics. Now they call it integrated academics.
Yeah.
And so, they got the science, math, and the language arts standards. And so what I did early in the year was when we had department meetings, I made sure, because, CTE, we're always onesie at our school. So I would ask to sit in on a math department, meeting, and also for science department. And I wanted to find out, when are you guys going to be teaching this and that? And I made sure that I taught my students at like 3-4 weeks in advance. But I wouldn't tell them I'm teaching you trigonometry or geometry or anything like that, or Ohm's law. I show them how the practical application of that was. And then, oh, by the way, you know what? That's geometry you just learned. That's just Ohm's law you just learned. And I would hear back from teachers, yeah, we have the student, he would do nothing in class at all. And then when we got to this part over here, all of a sudden, he became the leader in the class. Where'd you learn that? Oh, we did that in auto shop.
And here's your layoff letter, Larry. I said, and here's your layoff letter. So thanks for your service.
Oh, yeah. Larry, you did something that I recommend to all the shop teachers, is to coordinate with other teachers. Whether you like it or not, you got to do that. And also reach out to other shop teachers and industry pros. It's not going to save you from some, hot-headed administrator, but it does. That is a good piece of advice you gave, that you coordinated your math with with the application of what you did in the shop class. So I applaud you for doing that.
Thank you. You've seen these memes. Well, another day went by and I didn't use algebra. You use algebra every day. And I remember one of my students said, I'm not going to use math. I go, well, what do you want to do for, your career or whatever? I'm going to open up a taco shop. I'm going, oh my God, you're going to use it all the time. Portion control, buying, all the finance, everything. You're going to do that every day. Otherwise, you're not going to survive. And it's in every facet of what we do in our careers.
So I want to wrap it up for this topic. We don't have time to cover the off-grid trailer, but I can tease it a little bit and just show that we did cover a lot of systems. I mean, I really didn't know that much about AC wiring, and man, it's very interesting. You got your hot leg, you got your neutral, and how that actually happens, and then wire sizing for the breaker, and all kinds of stuff. So I'm just going to tease it a little bit. Maybe we'll do that on the next podcast, and we'll wrap it up on the recording for here. This was a pretty good one. This is a strong commitment that everybody has here towards teaching shop and coordinating with the other teachers. In this particular case, we had solar panels and a battery backup, but we actually used AI to come up with our concept. So we quickly made a concept. I'm just going to do an overview here because I want to do a more in depth. Over here we have volts, continuity, volts, amps, watts. You got to know all that stuff if you're working with DC or AC. We work with the wood shop to come up with a plan to put the tiny home on top of the trailer. I mean, it was a full-on endeavor. And then we even bench tested the system outside in the winter with the little bit of sunlight that we had just to see if it even works. I do recommend doing everything on a bench and everything modular. You should also use CAD, computer-aided design. We even used 3D printing. This was a cool thing. We even did 3D printing to make a wire mold bender, which is square in profile, unlike the round EMT, which is $40 at Home Depot. This one's $200, so we just made our own. And that's a design project, and we had to come up with a lot of stuff. And I'll just leave this last highlight here. This system hangs on the wall. It changes solar into battery energy, and then we put the AC breaker there. And if you want to see more of this project and how it turned out, we even ran a welder off of the system to make some repairs and shore up the actual trailer, because it was good, but it wasn't adequate. Maybe we underestimated our weight. But we actually ran the trailer. We got a mini split. We got outdoor outlets. We got 120. We got 240. We got a Victron monitoring system. I mean, it was a project. So anyway, I want to wrap it up in the interest of time, and we will reconvene next week. We can hang around, but I'm going to end the recording here. Anybody want to add anything before we go?
Hey, if you need a place to store that trailer, I got room over at my place.
All right. Off grid, baby. That's cool.
He might have to push it. He's not allowed to tow it anywhere.
You just have to get it there.
It's funny. It rolls easier than hooking it to a truck. And it was an ordeal just to move it one block. But we did it. The district I'm in, I'm lucky, super supportive. But it's a lot of effort. And so I can imagine, if you're teaching over a decade and a half, and then in California, they don't have these tenure rules, and then you can get cut down. That happened to my friend, and I just can't believe it. And it's happening to you guys, and it's amazing to me. So bring the shop class back and make it stronger than ever. It's only going to help all these students. All right. Okay, shop class podcast, and we're out.